At the end of 1985, however, Steve Elliott took what had become an inevitable step and moved out of the common New York apartment. The separation thrust Cup completely out of his unstable equilibrium. Attempts to clarify the situation ended with Cup's violent intrusion into a new apartment of Elliott, who answered with a restraining order. The situation escalated in the spring of 1986. Cup, who could no longer control his aggressions, was the subject of 2 complaints for bodily injury after fights in New York clubs. It was only possible to avert judicial processes through the payment of damages for pain and suffering. These 2 events were of decisive importance for Cup's indictment and conviction when 3 months later Steve Elliott was found dead in his New York apartment. The media and popular opinion were unanimous in the belief that George Cup has killed his partner. Thus, even before the trial began, the New York Post ran the headline, "Cup kills Elliott." Eyewitnesses from the neighboring building claimed to have seen Cup at the scene of the crime on the night in question. His extensively documented proclivity for violence, along with further pieces of evidence, led to the lifelong conviction, which he began to serve in November 1986 in a New York penitentiary. During the course of his imprisonment, there began an almost systematic erasure of the artistic works by Cup and Elliott. Sculptures were disassembled and disappeared. Works were removed from the collection of the Whitney Museum of American Art and the Guggenheim Museum, and today they cannot even be found in the inventory lists. Up to the founding of the George Cup Research Center, it almost seems as if the artist couple had never existed. The reasons for this radical sequence of events are puzzling, and even today the matter has not been cleared up, nor are any written statements by responsible figures to be found. Even when, surprisingly, at the beginning of 2007, George Cup was able to prove his innocence with regard to the death of Steve Elliott and, with no attention being paid by the media, was released from prison as a free man, numerous questions remained unanswered. Why had Cup not commented for 20 years concerning the events that took place in 1986? Why did he continue to remain silent after his exoneration? For whatever reason he possibly held himself responsible for the death of his partner, here as well he never gave us an answer. In the summer of 2007, the George Cup Research Center contacted the artists and prepared, in cooperation with the 2 exhibition houses in Wolfsburg and Norton, Cup's and Elliott's respective places of birth, a first inventory taking of those works which, in addition to those from the French collection, were still available. Already in 1991, a storage site in Brooklyn had been dismantled and its works destroyed. During the course of its investigations, the research center became aware of the collection of A.C. Greenspan, consisting of 42 works, most of which are being presented for the first time in the Städtische Galerie Nordhorn. The models and photographs of objects and installations from this compilation were taken as the basis for the realization of the exhibitions in Germany, which were conceived in close cooperation with George Cup. The large format installation, Square Round No. 4, dating from 1973, had been reconstructed for the Städtische Galerie Nordhorn according to drawings and designs. 10 square wooden panels, set up one behind the other, present to view a succession of 10 square cuts out of the panel, each varying by a few degrees, so that in a certain sense there is created a squaring of the circle, which is gradated from the black of the first panel vast various shades of grey to the white of the final panel. This installation is characteristic of Cup and Elliott's work from these years. Reducted geometrical surfaces in various sizes are always related to human dimensions, subdivide individually or serially the entire space, floor or wall. In spite of rigorous structural clarity and monochromatic coloration, there arises a complex interplay among open and closed volumes, internal and external forms, object, space and viewer. In addition to the space-encompassing installations, various wall objects combined with fluorescence tubes and dating from the late 1960s are presented, as well as paintings from 1956 and 1962, which are integrated into the three-dimensional objects. They already point towards the development of a seminally new vocabulary of reduced three-dimensional bodies, a formal language which is characteristic of the late works of Cup and Elliott. The static forms of the oil paintings were set in motion in later years with the help of animated films, so that the interplay of movement and music, the tradition of Oskar Fischinger, Hans Richter and other representatives of the early abstract film, was taken up and reinterpreted. The connection between form and sound consists of 26 animated films which were created between 1974 and 1979 on 8mm film, and which, because of their bad condition, have been digitally remastered for the exhibition. In the experimental film Loop 24 from 1972, the camera zooms towards a photograph which Cup is holding in his hands and which for its parts shows Cup with a photograph in his hands. For 5 minutes, the camera zooms in a straight line through the sites depicted on various photographs on different locations. Further animation films and kinetic objects, as well as artist books and the video installation Black Box No. 2 from 1979, are distributed between the two exhibition houses and offer a comprehensive view of the oeuvre of George Cup and Steve Elliott. These first two exhibitions of the German-American representatives of minimal art, George Cup and Steve Elliott, since their disappearance from the field of vision of the art world, hopefully represents only the beginning of a new evaluation of their work. The future will show whether this rediscovery of George Cup and Steve Elliott will remove the shroud of silence from them once and for all, and will assign to them their well-earned status in the history of art.